We're Michelle and Dan, a couple of Gen X, empty nesting Army veterans who would rather be outdoors than in. Follow along as we work towards living life unencumbered.
Hey Dan, what you doing?
Hey Michelle, I am just painting in an outline of an engraving that I recently did here on my hiking staff. As you know, we just got back from a little bit of a road trip, and we saw some wildlife and saw some pictographs, and one of those was of a bighorn sheep in the area, and I figured I would carve one out on my hiking staff just to kind of mark the occasion.
Nice. Yeah, that was really neat. We seen one in real life at one of the campsites that we stayed at, and then like you mentioned, yeah, there was some on some pictographs, a couple different pictographs actually that we saw. So why'd you decide to do that?
Well, it's certainly had this hiking staff for a long time, and it's really just a way to, it's kind of like a story stick. So something just to mark the occasion and spark my memory as best as I can when we do things that I want to kind of remember. It's a cool trip, so.
Yeah, that's neat. Yeah. So how long have you had it for? About?
Well, this hiking staff is actually, well, it's what, 2025, and we got it 1997, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say 97.
Yeah, January 1st, 1997, yeah. We, you remember that, it was that treehouse campground that we went to.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, pretty neat, unique, very unique campground. They had a bunch of different designs actually of tree houses, and you could pick which one you wanted to stay in, and some of them were actually in the trees or wrapped around the tree and that type of a thing. It was pretty neat. So. Yeah,
if I remember correctly, we were looking for something to do New Year's Eve that year, and we were in what, Maryland?
It was Maryland.
Yeah, because I was stationed at Walter Reed, and we were newly married at the time.
Yeah.
And we were
probably about a year into, maybe around a year into our marriage.
And we were wanting an adventure, so we decided to go out exploring. We threw our overnight gear in the back of the vehicle and took off. And I think we ended up just north of Harper's Ferry, and
yep, it was in that area. Yeah.
Well, we were traveling a bunch of back roads, just following where they went, and ran across this campground called I think it was Maple Tree Campground? Tree Campground.
Yeah, Maple Tree Campground.
And treehouse campground at Maple Tree Campground or something like that.
Yeah.
And there was snow on the ground too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was definitely snowing. Yeah, because I remember there wasn't that many people in the campground staying there.
There was nobody.
Actually, I think we were the only ones, and they were shocked that we wanted to camp.
Yeah, here we are. We're a couple of 20-somethings on New Year's Eve, and we show up at the camp host, and they just had a storm go by. Yeah. So there's at least 5 or 6 inches of snow.
Probably about that.
It was cold too.
Yeah, I mean, we had our gear with us, so we had everything we needed. But so, do you remember what your staff is made out of, or what type of wood it is?
Well, what I do remember is that after we made it through the night, the next morning, because of that snowstorm that came by, there was a bunch of downed trees, and I remember asking the host if I could lop off one of the branches of one of the downed trees, and looking at it, and because it's called Maple Tree Campground.
Well, yeah, and there's a bunch of people.
Yeah, I believe this is actually, because the only thing that I can really tell is off a little bit of bark that I left on it. I believe this is a sugar maple. and sugar or maple being a hardwood, you know, this is perfect for our staff. So, yeah, that's what I think it is.
Nice, yeah. So why'd you decide to customize it, or what made you think of doing like pictures or pictograph, I guess, of different things? Did you just kind of come up with that idea, or?
Well, I think every young man who goes out on a hike or goes camping always picks up a stick. You know, it's just something about that primal. You know, we've got our stick, and yeah, I remember looking for hiking sticks or hiking staffs and trying out different ones, and I always had it in my mind to make my own. I really didn't want a store-bought one. I mean, they sell certainly a lot of, you know, hickory walking sticks and staffs, or even trekking poles, which are made out of aluminum now. But for me, I wanted something custom. I wanted something that was robust and had some weight to it, and that would hold up over time. I didn't want something to break, or I didn't want it to be flimsy. And I think a lot of that's just really preference and how I want to use it. I tend to use this. I mean, shoot, it's been 28 years now that we've had this.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So I tend to use this for a lot of different reasons. I mean, you know, when traversing up and down, you know, when we're scrambling up on hikes, you know, rock. And for me, I tend to lean on it, and you know, it's when I'm hiking, going downhill most definitely, because I try to put the staff in front of me to kind of put my weight a little bit on it, and then of course going up, you know, I'm using it to push down, and it's kind of why I chose this particular height as well, because I like it when my arm is naturally at like this, and my hand can go around the top, and so that way I can lean on it or push on it and put my weight on that.
And then it looks like you also customized or the bottom of it just to make
Most
it
definitely.
more sturdy.
Yeah, there's a lot of customization that went into this. It's, you know, and again, this was all just personal preference on what I wanted to do. First, I made, you know, the tip, you know, comfortable for your hand. I think that's really important. I think a lot of the store boughts, they have a lot of decorative carvings and stuff up here at the top. I made sure that this fit my hand, because otherwise I'm going to get blisters on that.
Yeah, I remember when you carved it out to specifically.
I put some hashes here on this particular side just for a little bit better grip, because when I don't have my hand on top, my hand is probably about like there as well, just right off from my body. So that's the other area that it gets heavy use, is either up here or down here is where I hold it. Put a little 550 cord in the end. This helps me. I don't know if you remember, when we were canoeing, we had this with us, and I don't know how, but we dropped something into the creek or river that we were canoeing, and we had to fish it out, and I had to just like kind of, so that came in handy for that. The rest of
Go ahead.
No, the rest of it, we just took off the bark. I left a little bit of bark here at the end for.
It's kind of unique. Add some character.
Yeah. This little strip right here is just a little reflective tape. That way, in the event that I did need to, I don't know, an emergency or something, I figured it might be useful, something reflective.
Sure.
Below that is probably about 25 feet of 550 cord, about I think it's 7-strand 550 cord or parachute cord. That way, it's always there if needed.
Yeah, for emergencies.
You know, on the end, we went through a couple of renditions, if you remember, on the end of this, and right now this has one of those kind of like a cane.
Yeah, it's like a cane.
Or a walker end that you can pick up at a hardware store or a pharmacy. But those come right off. These are cheap. But if you remember, on the end, what I ended up doing was just taking about 1.5 inches of copper piping and pounding that over the wood. And then what I ended up doing was drilling a hole through the end, and there's probably a lag bolt, probably about 2.5 inches that goes in the bottom. And we had it like that for a little while.
Yeah, you had it like that for a few years.
But I think after using it, I mean, this gets pounded in the ground quite a bit. So I think after all the clank, clank, clank.
Well, and you were noticing it was slipping on a few different, depending on the ground, it was slipping a little bit.
Yeah, because it had that metal bolt head of that lag bolt on the end.
Yeah.
And I got tired of that, but I put that in there to help reinforce, the maple, the wood from, flaring out, and to kind of reinforce that. So instead of leaving that lag bolt head there, I ended up putting a little bit of that is 2-part epoxy. I think it's with hardener. It's epoxy and hardener. I forget what it's called. The name's escaping me right now. But I put that over the end and rounded that out, and still getting a lot of nice thuds. And I think last couple of years I just decided to put a rubber cap on the end, and I actually like this on here now. It doesn't slip on rocks, and it gives a good purchase on the ground. So.
And I noticed that you named your walking staff. Is there anything behind the reason you chose that name? And then can you tell us about some of your carvings?
I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what we were thinking. I can't take full credit for the name. I mean, I'm sure you collaborated.
I don't remember how you or us, came up with that name.
I think we were thinking.
There has to be something behind it that we just can't remember.
I think we were thinking keeping the peace.
Well, obviously, yeah.
One of the things as we hike and we come across other hikers, you get in the back of your mind, especially if you're in a really remote area, is safety, and safety with other hikers, and safety with maybe wild animals, and kind of the thought behind how solid of a hiking staff this is that if need be, it could be a deterrent, number one, and then of course, to keep people or animals at a distance. And
yeah, I mean, you can almost double it as somewhat of a weapon. So
yeah,
I mean, somewhat
keeping the peace.
Yeah.
So, and then of course to go along with that name, we and of course most of this is just Dremel work. Dremel's a little tool with a little carving bit on it. That, and of course we put the date that we acquired it, which was January 1st, 1997, and put a little happy face there, of course. It's kind of that goes back to that "don't worry, be happy," which was in the 90s.
I know you had a canoe. That's one of my favorite things. We used to do so much canoeing.
Oh yeah, engraved a canoe, and there was a time where we had a canoe and some friends that we enjoyed going camping or canoeing with, and I tried to put a date next to this. This was August 18th, 1997. Got the old U.S. Army MedCom unit shoulder patch.
Nice.
That's coming out of Fort Sam Houston. That's of course where we met.
That is right. Yes.
In Fort Sam Houston, and this was the unit we were attached to when we were in the Army. So we put that there. It was right after Christmas, so that's my Christmas tree. This is the little carving right here in regards to the little tree house.
The tree house with some pine trees.
This is my new carving. This isn't done yet.
That's the one that you just did.
That's the bighorn sheep. This symbol right here, for those of you familiar with hiking, this is a symbol for the Appalachian Trail. Michelle and I, when we lived in Maryland, we did a significant amount of hiking in Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maryland, that whole section of the Appalachian Trail, so quite a bit. Got my old fraternity letters, Phi Delta Theta, and bond number there. Yogi and Boo Boo, you remember that?
Yes, that was our names on the Appalachian Trail.
Trail names.
Trail names.
Oh.
Everyone comes up with something unique to them, and you're known as those trail names. And then when you sign the books that are in the camping shelters and stuff like that, usually you use your trail names.
You were Yogi, right?
No.
No, you were certainly Boo Boo. And this is my poor attempt at a little dog. This is our Jack Russell Terrier, who passed away a few years ago.
Yep, Kendall.
Yeah, had a little carving there. And this one we put on a few years ago as we were looking to get a tow-behind travel trailer, camper travel trailer. There's a little kind of that. We've had pop-up campers over the years as well, so put that there.
And I know you started tracking miles back in the day, but obviously we hiked so many miles, we kind of did away with that. But about how many miles do you think that you've used that hiking stick on?
I don't know if you recall or not, but these tick marks. So I started logging miles on this hiking staff, and
I think there were 10.
I think they were originally 10,
yeah.
And then so many ticks, and then each tick became 100 miles as we added it up, and I gave up as far as that. Matter of fact, there's a couple tick marks here I haven't even colored in, but with this particular staff since 1997, we've got a couple thousand miles on this.
Yeah, probably through the years. Yeah.
So it's certainly been with us for quite a while. It's kept us safe from snakes, dogs. What else? Was there? I have a memory of a skunk at one time.
It's possible.
Kind of just get away to everything.
Definitely a couple of snakes for sure.
Yeah.
Ring a bell.
Snakes that we ring. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
So you still think you would prefer that over like the store-bought trekking poles?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah,
most
I
definitely.
agree.
And the reason is it's solid wood, and it's custom. It's a hardwood. There's no flex in this at all. And you recall. It comes in very useful when we're hiking and we're scrambling. At elevation, and we're going up at an angle.
Oh yeah, I've had to borrow it from him a few times.
Well, not only loaning it to you, but if I'm in front, there's times where I've used it as kind of something to extend,
right.
to help give you stability, and as well. It's proved very useful.
Would you recommend others making their own hiking staff?
I would.
I think they're fun just because of the story behind them, and it's something you can pass down to generations.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Folks who hike, for at least the people I've met, this gets a lot of attention when we're on the trail. As you know, we often get asked about it. We often get stops and looks and say, "Oh, check out that staff," or "Check out that hiking stick." And it's
kind of neat, some of the conversations that have come from that hiking staff, for sure.
Met some interesting folks as well. But I definitely recommend someone creating their own. I'd recommend using a hardwood, oak, hickory, in this particular case maple, or another hardwood that's available. Certainly off of a down tree, or a good place is if you don't have access right away, landscaping trimmings. A lot of your city jurisdictions will have green waste dumps or drop-offs, tree trimmings. You can certainly find a lot of branches from a lot of different trees that the landscapers take. But and what you do with it's certainly custom. I would recommend finding that height that works for you and how you want to use it. I can't tell you how many times we've seen folks on, on a hiking trip, and, if they've got trekking poles, I'm not a big fan of trekking poles personally, because you're using two hands. I don't have a free hand to either hold myself or catch myself, or I find myself a little too worried about, that motion or where I'm placing my individual trekking poles. But of course, that's all individual preference. A lot of folks have shorter ones. If you remember, our son, when he was really young, we got him a hiking staff as well.
Yeah.
And I think it was taller than him.
Yeah, it was too tall,
time,
so we just noticed he chose not to use it that much, but...
Yeah.
Well, great. That's awesome. So anything else you want to say to wrap this up?
Not really.
Yeah, I think we
not
kind of
really.
went over everything, so...
When this dries, all I do is I engrave something with a Dremel, and I'll fill in that engraving with, some, I guess this is just acrylic paint. I'll let it dry, and what I'll do, I'll go and I'll lightly sand it to clean it up, throw some oil on it, preferably linseed oil or another wood oil, mineral spirits maybe. Yeah, maybe not mineral spirits, probably linseed oil.
I was going to say, I think it's usually, we use linseed oil.
I'm pretty sure that's what I've been using. But yeah, this will last us. We'll have this until until it's time.
Till we kick the bucket.
Till it's time to have that last trail, that long walk. So, but yeah. So.
Great.
Well,
All right. Well, thanks for sharing all the great information about your staff, and we hope that you all found this interesting and will maybe make a hiking stick of your own.
Yeah. Until next time.
All right. Bye.